when different particular acts are criminalized or are supposedly sanctioned by the state, how that can have an impact in the family law context. And this is the same. We all know, I mean, we know that there's a different standard of proof in criminal law than family law. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because if a man is not convicted of a physical assault on his wife or a sexual abuse of his children, if he's acquitted or if it's stayed or whatever, you know it's playing into the minds of the judge in the family law context. They're like, well, it didn't happen, because certainly that's what the man is saying, the father, the husband, whatever. That's what he's saying. And so you get another layer here if you add in coercive control, is that if, of course, first of all, if the mother doesn't report, the woman doesn't report coercive control to the state police, to the police, that must mean it didn't happen, or it's not real, or it's not really that, important in her life, or not much of an impact. And that will play out in how things happen in the family law context. And the same happens with the ministry. The ministry has the Ministry of Children and Family Development, the child protection forces here in British Columbia have no way to deal with coercive control. I mean, they can barely deal with emotional abuse, psychological abuse at all. I mean, it doesn't fall into a protection concern. So again, it gets used against women who are saying, this is happening, this is real, to say, well, the state doesn't actually agree with you. The other parts of the state don't agree with you. So it's not real at our end. So it ramps up then the onus on women to prove that coercive control is happening, and then what the impact is, particularly when it comes to the children, right? And if it's just happening to the woman, I mean, how do you play it out? It's like, I've read something where it's like, well, he did all this stuff, but the children weren't there. So it obviously has no impact on the children. I mean, other judges have said, look, children need to have an emotionally strong and supported mother in order for them to overcome whatever they went through. But even if they didn't experience anything, they deserve to have a mother who hasn't gone through this. And I wanted to talk a bit about evidence and in proving these cases, and drawing from what Deepa was also saying about, I mean, we do live in a colonial society. There's histories of racism, like realities of racism, homophobia, obviously misogyny, and so forth. And credibility is everything in the eyes of the court. And a lot of times, and I think all of my other panels would agree, that most of the time our clients, women, don't actually realize what has been going on for them, that it could be violence, it is coercive, or even recognizing that things happen. That if the husband says, oh, well, no, oh, don't go see your friends, like, or don't call your parents every week or something, that is a sign of coercive control. I mean, lots of women are in such trauma that they can't recognize, let alone mount a case with evidence, with corroborating evidence. It's certainly, they're not sitting there. One of them is like, the corroborating evidence would be like, you have contemporaneous emails that talk about, the abuse that's going on. Well, most of the time women are trying to just survive these situations, or they're trying to just raise their children or work or do whatever. And how then would they be thinking strategically, well, okay, I should be videotaping this, or I should be writing these emails and, saying this is what you did to me. And who knows if those are true anyway. A lot of men do that anyway, just to, create a record. We know that. And then there's, things like, I was reading one case where the judge basically said, well, the woman was accomplished in her life. She was educated, had a good job. So therefore, like, there couldn't be coercive control, because if the husband was coercively controlling, she wouldn't have succeeded. So there's lots of bias in terms of how we perceive and judge women and how they respond and react. And there is no one way that a woman is going to react to being subjected to coercive control. And also, we as a society and courts are not very good at sort of, we think that a relationship ends and the coercive control or that kind of behavior ends, and it doesn't necessarily. Sometimes it takes a different form because the abuser doesn't have direct access in the same way as they did during the relationship. And, courts are very not good about really looking at future, right? They sort of look at, they sort of talk about, what's the risk, but they don't look at the impact. Because a lot of times, of course, the fear of mothers is that if he is doing this to me, he's going to do this to our children. He may not be doing it now, but he will. And the courts can't handle that. They have no way to process that unless, there's actually that kind of conduct, coercive conduct happening towards the children now. They can't handle that. Maybe if, he is treating the mother this way, he's going to do that to the children later on, or maybe he is doing it and we don't know. Anyway, I think, it's very courageous for women who come forward with coercive control, but I've seen so many who are just totally slammed by the court, slammed, and it has a huge impact. I mean, there's this whole notion that a lot of times that violence is mutual. And so if a woman reacts to an act of coercive control by yelling back or throwing something, or or withholding the children, that's a huge one that courts like to see as they see that as coercive control, and that's the danger of it in a family law context. And so I do fear, when there are things like, if things are not proven in a criminal law context or in the ministry context or whatever other state context, that it does flow down negatively for women in a family law context.